bit late now.
All right, it's everyone's favorite segment. It's After the Beat. That's when we communicate with all of you and answer some of your questions. I'm told we've got some great ones, so without further ado, let's go to question number 1. This one says, I cringe so bad when fighters ask for the fight bonus at the end of fights. What's the one thing, doesn't have to be MMA based, that makes you guys cringe harder than you thought possible? Is there anything that really makes you cringe in MMA these days? Anything that comes to mind?
I certainly don't like it when there's a contender in the wings, and there's an obvious contender in the wings. Like, basically the fight that you're seeing is leading to this contender, and yet whoever wins starts to immediately brush off that contender, doesn't want anything
Oh,
to
yes,
do with
yes,
them.
yes, yes, yes.
So that always bugs me, because we were talking about Durandamy.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest disappointments. You're like, all right, we suffered through this fight, and this whole card that was pretty bad, but just to see her immediately start to say no thanks on the Cyborg stuff, very, very weird.
Yeah. We saw that with TJ Dillashaw and Jimmy Rivera as well. I know Dillashaw is trying to get the DJ fight, but he's like, yeah, what has this guy done? And he's won like 20 fights in a row or something like that. Anything else that makes you guys cringe or pleading the fifth?
Fighter deadlift videos.
Oh my God.
Those are always a disaster.
Who's the worst?
No. Well, the famous one is the Tony Ferguson one, where I thought actually, the worst one is the Bryce Harper one. Not a fighter, but as an athlete. I mean, you couldn't, this dude, it looked like he was trying to recreate the St. Louis golden or the silver arch, but it deserves to be noted. Who is, I forget him, the dude who rides the horse who's bald from Sweden? What's his name?
Ilir Latifi.
Ilir Latifi. He is the exception. He wears the wrong shoes to deadlift.
Talk about the Dolphin.
I'll say, he wears the wrong shoes to deadlift, but he deadlifts super heavy weight. And do you follow him on Instagram?
I don't think I've seen this.
He was deadlifting today, and he tore off.
Today?
No, about a week ago.
Okay.
And he tore off a substantial portion of the skin off his hand.
Oh, no.
And bled everywhere, and then kept training.
Wow.
Salute to Ilir Latifi. What a man he is.
Wait, but isn't that that's unsanitary, right?
You're way off topic.
Do you understand how dirty those weights are?
That's true. That's true.
It's like licking the bottom of the New York City subway.
Okay.
Luke's thing just made me cringe. I think that's what. I think mine is always about. Well, it's two parts of the grappling aspect in MMA. One is when the second or third time that some guy's getting taken down, but he saves himself by grabbing the cage, and the ref is like sort of like, if you do this one more time, I'm gonna take a point. And then the second one is, of course, when you see some guys down there, and one guy is clearly trying to get himself into a better position, and the crowd is just practically begging for the fight to be stood up. I guess that kind of makes me cringe.
There's one other one.
Yes, please.
And I know you've talked about this a lot. You've talked about this one a lot before, but you get a guy in an obvious circumstance where it's his biggest moment that he's had, and he gets on the mic afterwards, and he has nothing to say, nobody to call out. In this game, you watch it long enough, and you've watched so many people come and go, and how hard it is to distinguish. It makes me cringe when somebody doesn't use their moment to better advantage, especially at that heightened moment when they're shining at their brightest. You're like, use the microphone. Even if, just anything compelling. It doesn't have to be calling out a specific guy, but just be compelling in some way.
I'll just throw out two, and I agree with you, by the way. When it's like around 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and we've just, been watching fights for 6 hours and 14 fights, and they're like, and now let's send it back to LA, the studio, to break down next weekend's UFC 218 pay-per-view. Like,
that makes you cringe?
Oh my God. No, cringe would be like the nicest thing that it makes me feel like.
That makes me weep.
Yeah.
Legitimately cry.
And one more, just 2 words, Reebok uniform.
What do you missed your opportunity.
That doesn't make me cringe. That honestly just gives me explosive diarrhea every time that show that they play
I'll throw out the Reebok uniform as well. I've said enough about that one. All right, what else do we have? Okay. Who are the best non-UFC fighters, and which organization are they from? Can you pick one fighter right now, if you were in charge, not fighting in the UFC, that you'd love to see the UFC sign? Is there anyone that comes to mind? Is there a fighter out there?
Well, I'm happy to not see them sign.
No, but I'm just saying from a UFC perspective.
I would go, I'd be very curious to see what happens with Ed Ruth.
Ed Ruth, interesting.
Ed Ruth, I think being in Bellator has been good for his development, because he can just go fight donk diggity donk in Romania, beat the balls off of him, and then he can get another fight within 3 months. He's had a lot of ring time to work out things, because I think there's a big question, like, how much do you really need elite athletes from other sports to matriculate over to be successful in MMA anymore? I don't know the answer to that. It used to be ironclad true, and I'm sure it is still true to some extent. You get a good athlete, they're young enough, they can do a lot, but I wonder how important it is going forward relative to how important it has been.
Interesting.
Mine's sort of qualified, but I mean, ultimately, I'd love to see Michael Page, but you still want to see him first kind of fight some names within Bellator, but at some point, if his trajectory is there and he keeps being compelling, I would say somebody like Michael Page.
I mean, can I go to a retired fighter, some guy that's
Please.
Yeah, how about Ben Askren? I know he's been out of the sport for a while, but I know he never really proved himself when he was in the sport. I know he needs to, like, you know, according to the UFC president, the guy really hasn't proven anything.
Done enough, yeah.
But, is he still around?
Yeah. that is probably the best one. Yeah. I'll throw out Michael Chandler as well.
Yeah,
I would be curious to see how he would.
Wonder what Brent Primus thinks about that, there, Mr. Helwani.
I'm not throwing shade, but Chandler's been around longer, and based off of how Will Brooks has done in the UFC, I'd be curious to see how. No, but Brent Primus, champion, let him do his thing. I'm kind of confused as to why that fight isn't happening next.
Eddie Alvarez has done okay.
Yeah, he has. Although at the beginning, remember Alvarez, it was a bit rocky. Yeah, it was a bit rocky. All right, what else do we have? Best fighter to never win a belt.
Ooh.
So like a UFC belt?
So I took this as UFC belt. Okay. Because, I mean, there's so many belts, and someone has probably won a belt along the way.
I got two names.
Okay.
Cerrone and Florian.
Interesting. Wow, those are great ones. Yeah, those are great ones. I would say. And Florian fought in 4 UFC title fights.
He did.
Cerrone won against RDA.
And multiple weight classes for...
well, the WC, but I'm talking about UFC.
Right. But I mean, weren't all of Cerrone's title bouts at 155?
He's only had... Oh, Cerrone's only had 1.
Right, but it was at... No, it was RDA.
Yeah.
He didn't get one in WC, right?
He did against Benson Henderson.
That was 155.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is Florian did it at 145 and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are great ones. Maybe Dan Henderson too. Like he's
that was mine.
He was up. I mean, he had some big fights.
He never fought for a title. Wow.
He did fight. He lost to Bisping. Remember?
He lost.
Oh, right.
He lost to Rampage.
Oh, so never have a belt.
Never have a belt. Yeah.
What am I saying?
He fought for it several times, but he just never got over it. But every other organization he had it, and he was. I mean, back in the day, man, a Hendo fight, you always felt like they were big deals to me, at least. You'd watch him and just his power and. You know, his chin and everything that went together, I thought that he was destined for it.
I hate going last because I thought of Florian and Henderson, but I didn't even think about Cerrone as in that category.
He's out there still.
You don't have to have one. I mean,
really, Florian was the guy that came to my mind immediately because he had his shots at it.
Yeah, that is a great one.
I mean, that's the really
Henderson
guy.
was the one that came to mind for me. There are not a ton, but I do think our own Casey Leiden was trying to make the case last weekend that Cub Swanson should be in that discussion.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
What about on the female side? Would you say Kat Zingano, or is that a little too premature?
I think that's premature.
Yeah, probably. So interesting that it's hard to come up with a name.
Yeah, well, they haven't been around as long,
Fair enough,
right?
just saying.
Yeah, but no, Cyborg probably would have been the one until she won. Until she won back in July. All right, so what else do we have? Should Bisping's final fight be against the aforementioned Dan Henderson in London? Some say Dan won their last fight. Can I just throw out something first before?
Sure, please.
I don't want to see Bisping fight in London in March. That's way too soon. I don't want to see him fight for a year, if ever again. So this idea that he has to come back in less than 3 months now is crazy to me.
Though. I mean, it's not the UFC who's ordaining it, right?
Well, by
they could say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or just not offer.
So above the Henderson thing, that's just my take on it. Like this idea that he has to come back in March is ludicrous to me. But how about you guys? What do you think? You were shaking your head.
I agree with you that I don't think that should be allowed back in after that last knockout. I mean, I think they shouldn't have had that last one.
Sure.
But no, and Henderson, I don't see it. I mean, he fought him. What, like less than a year ago, wasn't it? Or maybe a little over a year ago.
A little over a year ago.
But you know, so I mean, to me, the obvious fight for him in London was going to be, in my mind at least, beat Vitor Belfort because it was kind of a revenge fight. But Vitor Belfort, the one thing the guy can do is he can still hit, and you don't want to go in there against a guy who can hit. I mean, if you're going to have him fight in London, it has to be against a grappler, right? Because I don't want to see him in there against somebody who can knock his block off.
Yeah, the problem is that like the way that those Henderson and Bisping went out at that last fight, I remember afterwards you just feel a little bit like you're watching something overly gratuitous, and it's more like cumulative toll that both guys have had leading into each other. It's just like you don't want to see people repeatedly in car accidents. You don't want to see repeatedly beating each other up like that. But I would say that the most logical one would still be Vitor Belfort, only because I know that the same thing might happen to Bisping, but just given that it's going to be an event tailored to him ultimately in London, and this is a guy that he puts an asterisk on that 2003 knockout when that occurred, and I think that you know, you just put those things together, and it's probably one of those guys he would love to get back.
Yeah.
And Vitor's talking about his fight being the, you know, maybe, I don't know if that was legit or not, but maybe being the last fight. So
I think he's had like 5 retirement fights at this point.
But I mean, to me, I guess I would rather see that than Henderson.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not one of these guys who's squeamish about this. I actually think you should put him up against the most exciting fight. So for me, it's Belfort or Romero. Here's the deal.
I had to say Rockhold.
Or you could do. I mean, let's see what happens with I guess the fight with Whitaker. But my thought about this is like for a long time we were, and this is different because he's out there saying this is my retirement fight. I personally would like the guys at the end of their career, they just prolong it. You got Rashad Evans going to Mexico City and fighting Sam Alvey. Then you go to Oklahoma City and there's BJ fighting Dennis Seaver. Now, again, those are different because those guys said, well, we'll see how this goes versus I'm done. But I just think we have this notion where we shouldn't, put the guys at the end of their contests and their careers in difficult fights. Let's sort of ease them out. Nope, doesn't work that way.
Why? Why not?
I think you need to.
That's crazy.
I think you got to give them the business on the way out.
What?
I really do.
That's insane.
Let me throw something out. How about Bisping against Ngannou?
Yeah.
Well,
that sounds like a great idea.
Okay, I mean, it's a little bit of
mismatch for Ngannou.
With Lucas, special guest referee.
Hold on a second. What would be wrong with that?
Look,
the point about not coming back in March. If he didn't come back, I wouldn't cry. If you want to retire tomorrow, to me, great. You had an unbelievable career, Michael Bisping. What a distinguished career he had, But if he's going to come back and he wants to do it in London, you need to make sure they understand what time it is. And I'm telling you, you laugh, everybody laughs. There's going to be another guy who's going to age out, and it's going to be this slow, super laborious process. The best way, look at Chuck Liddell's record.
Yeah.
You can see records. Look at Arlovsky's record at the end here versus Chuck Liddell's. It's way worse, not really in terms of wins and losses, but all the bad things that were happening to him. And they just keep letting him fight. The best way to get Chuck Liddell to retire was for him to get slept by Rich Franklin. And that was hard to watch, and it was terrible, and I wouldn't want to see it again. But if you don't do that kind of thing, passions linger.
Yeah, but they were trying to...
Yeah, but no one bit.
But that ushered him out. Like, Bisping's saying, this is my last fight. He doesn't need to get slept to say goodbye.
I mean, merely... Hold on a second. And you haters...
I can't wait till you're a parent, man.
You haters... Oh, I'm just going to push the kid into traffic for the bike. You haters think he won't win. I think he could honestly also win. What I'm saying is... All I'm saying is the following. Don't have this soft bigotry of low expectations. Say to yourself, this is how, what are you ranked in the world now, Michael Bisping? What is he, still top 5?
7, I think.
Okay, number 7, you're top 10?
Yeah.
You're going to match up with someone around your number.
Can I throw out this idea? If he wants to say goodbye in London, what's so bad about this idea? It's the co-main event. They're about to get started, or the co-main event just ended.
Just tap automatically, Bob Sapp style?
Play that song, Blur Song 2. Let him walk out. Let him get a standing ovation. Let him address the people in the crowd. Let him say thank you. Let him say goodbye. Why does he have to fight? Why does he have to do that?
I don't think Michael Bisping wants that. I think everybody wants to carry the guys on their way out very gently.
I don't want to see guys stretchered out.
You got to feed these Christians to the lions.
Well, I mean, how about a compromise? Maybe he says he wants one more fight, but that's not the time to have it. And maybe you do that thing. Maybe you have him come out, get the adulation of his home country's crowd. And he's like, I'm going to come back. I've got another one coming, but give him a moment.
Yeah, give him a moment.
No, Romero, Belfort, period.
Well, if he didn't get knocked out, I would have been the fight. Like if he would somehow.
It's still the fight.
Yeah, well, not that soon though, because it's like you're just putting him right there. If they were going to do it 6 months from now, I'd be like, sure, go ahead.
All right, what else do we have? Can we give a little love to ring announcer Joe Martinez? I think he does a great job. Not really a question, but let us celebrate the great... No, you refuse. Chuck refuses. Joe Martinez, what do we think?
I think he's the best announcer UFC has.
Really?
I know Bruce Buffer is the tenured one. Look, everyone's got their tastes. I'm not here to talk you out. If you like Bruce Buffer, I'm not here to talk you out of it at all. And the fighters love him. It's really important. But if you ask me in terms of flair and style, I think the way in which he has command of his voice, Buffer's a little bit more of and this again, it's a preference thing. It's a little bit more of a shouter, and I like guys who are a little bit more Jimmy Lennon, can carry a tune almost, and Martinez can do that.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. I think
he's really good. It's funny though, I hear people argue this stuff, and I feel like I just don't really have that much of a care about it. But
IDGAF?
But I used to always compare Bruce Buffer to Michael Buffer, you know, and I remember Bruce Buffer saying somebody had told him, I think it was Frank, you know what I'm talking about? Frank used to work for the WEC. Well, anyway,
Frank Carreri.
Yes. Yeah. And he said that he told him one time that Michael Buffer was like a fine Merlot, and Bruce Buffer was like a shot of whiskey, you know? And I remember I was like, wow, that's a really weird way of doing it. I actually started paying more attention to ring announcers at that point. To me, the Bruce Buffer thing is a little bit weird and overboard, and I like it because it does enhance a moment, but there's a little bit of a, I don't know, you see it for so long, and I feel like I almost build up my immunities to it. So therefore, something like, you know, the other guys stand out a little more, you recognize them a little more.
I kind of gone the opposite way. I think that back in the day, Buffer kind of sounded too almost cartoonish, too over the top, but as the years have gone by, I realized that, you know, if it's a big fight, Bruce Buffer is going to be the one who's introducing the guys. And I love when he, you know, he gets right in the guy's face and he's screaming at the fighter, you know, this guy's name and his nickname, and then some of the fighters that give him a little fist. I mean, I realize that in a way it's almost like he's becoming maybe too much of the story, but I buy into it. So as the years have gone by,
I've never seen Martinez try a 360 introduction.
Especially with a torn ACL.
Yes,
listen,
exactly.
Unlike you guys, I don't feel like I have to tear down Bruce Buffer to give Joe Martinez some love.
I'm not tearing down Bruce Buffer.
For God's sakes. I mean, let's just give the guy love.
It's just a preference thing. There's no right or wrong answer here.
I'll say this about Joe Martinez. The way he pronounces, especially Latino names, is a beautiful thing.
Perfect.
Also, if you're lucky enough to call Uriah Faber and not have him pick up, Joe Martinez is on his voicemail, and the way he would introduce Uriah Faber, the way you like to say,
California kid,
is phenomenal. I wish he would just do Uriah fights. You know, obviously Uriah is retired now, but there was something very WC about him. Like he was not. I didn't feel like he was like a second-class citizen. Like I didn't feel like WC was the second-class citizen to the UFC. Yeah. So I'm happy when it's nice when he shows up from time to time.
It's also interesting. Do you remember when they had that? They brought in John Gooden and Dan Hardy. They had that one other announcer. I think he still does Cage Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. And I find him fine.
Andy Friedlander.
I find him just fine. I have no real criticism. But he was not brought back. Yeah. I guess for whatever reason. Again, it's a preference issue, but the people in charge. Martinez, still recurring, tells you something because you look at the other commentators, there's going to be a new play-by-play, Paul Felder's back in duties. Yeah. They're constantly shuffling that. They don't do that with the announcers. It's Buffer, and if it's not Buffer, it's Martinez, and that's it. That tells you a lot about how good those two guys are.
Yep. Well said. All right, what else we have? Here we go. You're in a Secret Santa, and you draw Dana White's name. What are you buying him for Christmas?
Easy.
Okay, what do you got,
driveway full of snow, so he doesn't have to go out and buy himself.
What are you buying Dana White in a Secret Santa?
People love that snow story. For those that don't know, a couple years ago, he tweeted a video of somehow getting snow, putting it on his driveway, and his kids were sledding. Why is that so bad? That's just a dad trying to make his
It's pretty
kids
awesome,
Christmas.
actually. I think it's one of those things that people like to make fun of, but it is kind of an awesome dad thing to do. You know?
Sure,
it wasn't about him. It was about I got all the money in the world, so what can I do? I'm gonna get my.
I don't hate it either, but even today I tweeted a photo of this girl. It was a packed train. She was totally normal. She just decided to sleep on the train. She was not homeless. Which was like, there was like literally a pregnant lady standing.
Oh, gosh.
If you say anything on social media that's like, it's a little bit unclear, or if you have a lot of money and you're doing a nice thing for your kids, social media is a humorless place for zilches to ruin everyone else's
I was wondering
life.
where you were going from the lady on the subway to.
I'm injecting myself into the story unnecessarily, only to make a point about social media. I think you're probably right about that it wasn't a big deal. But at the same time, there were a bunch of poor fighters. Fighters getting their water turned off. And I got plenty of water here on my snowy driveway in Las Vegas.
Fair.
So I think that was it. But on a Secret Santa?
Stumped you?
I'd get him a Denver Broncos hoodie because screw the New England Patriots.
Yeah, he's always wearing hoodies.
That's a good one. Yeah. I like that one. That's a good one. You know what I would get him? I would, you know, back in the day in high school, you could make mixtapes for people. I'd make them a mixtape of greats. People always ask me, like, what song should they have instead of Face the Pain? I'm like, you could have Dead Air, and it would be a dramatic improvement.
Imagine the B-roll.
But people always act like, well, if it's Face the Pain, I mean, what else is there?
That doesn't rev you up. Come on.
There's not this like vast catalog of amazing songs you could pick from. I would put together a little mixtape of some potential suggestions.
Wow, that's a good one. I'm going to get him a Nevada boxing promoter's license, because that is the only thing that will give us the old Dana White back. Passionate Dana White. The Dana White who cares. Yeah. You know, the one who screams at the top of his lung and actually promotes. That's the only thing. Nothing MMA related. So I'm going to go with the boxing promoter's license.
The one who, you know, he doesn't shave like he used to.
Yeah, he's kind of just, I mean,
he's just letting himself go a little.
$400 million. It's hard to wake up when you've got $400 million in the bank.
I know the feeling.
Those satin sheets just feel too damn good. What can you do? You know, it's hard to wait. He's wearing a hoodie, for God's sakes, everywhere he goes.
Wait, did we get one from Jeff? Oh, yeah, it was the...
It's a pile of snow. And I meant, by the way, I just want to clarify, I meant actual snow. I was not making some kind of, like, drug reference.
Oh, stop it, stop it. All right, so what else we have?
Now your story got less cool now.
What is a Christmas tradition that you all do each and every single year? So I'm going to abstain. Okay, I'm Jewish.
Right.
But I will say this.
Do you do Christmas?
I do Hanukkah. Okay. But I will say this. I am obsessed with Christmas music. And so, like, come October, that is all I listen to.
What's your songs?
When I was a kid, I bought the Time Life Treasury of Christmas, and I would play it, like, in July. I love Christmas music, so that's my tradition, even though I don't actually celebrate Christmas. What do I like? White Christmas, I mean, all of them, you know, Winter Wonderland, anything. I'll just,
like the Mariah Carey stuff?
I don't love it. I like when they play like.
You got an opinion about it.
Oh my God, that's a little too new age. Like Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby. I like that stuff a little more.
All right.
Love Christmas music. I adore Christmas music. So that's mine. As a Jew, that's what. And eggnog, which my kids call Christmas drink. They don't even know what eggnog is.
That's a great name for it.
They call it Christmas drink.
They
So look,
they call it Christmas drink when there's a little cognac in it.
no, there is no cognac. But the box just has like a Christmas. You know, there's one I think organic one that we get from the supermarket that's just fantastic. So those are mine. What do you got, Jeff? You've been around the longest.
My wife is Jewish, so we also do a little bit of a dance around that. In fact, her parents have a big 200-acre farm out in New York, and one of the things they did was, for a while, was grow Christmas trees. So one of our traditions was to go out to that place and get and cut down a Christmas tree and then lug it all the way back home. We don't do that now. So my tradition is first of all, Christmas is no Christmas music or anything is allowed before Thanksgiving in our house. I ban that. But as soon as Thanksgiving is over, as soon as the turkey is digested, I get my two kids and we go out and we go find a place in the area to get a Christmas tree.
On that day?
Not that day, but like the next day, we bring the tree back and we play Christmas music, and we put the tree up, and it's kind of become a really cool thing.
Okay,
that's similar to mine. I mean, every Friday after Thanksgiving, we go to there's a local firehouse in the small town I live in, and they sell Christmas trees, so it's like the tradition to go over there and let the kids pick out the tree, and that's about it.
And do you dress up the tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we come back and just do the whole thing.
But I've never had a Christmas tree in my life. I am so envious. Yes.
Wait, let me ask you a question. I feel like I've known some, I mean, they're less religious, what would you call them, secular Jews, but they put trees up.
Yeah, they're just trying to be, you know.
Trendy or whatever?
Yeah.
They're just fun.
Some people like to call it like a Hanukkah bush. You know, yeah, but it's not, I mean.
But you don't, why wouldn't you do it?
Because I'm Jewish.
But I'm saying, I know some who've done.
Listen, I'm envious, and I sort of live vicariously through all of you.
I see.
But it would
put
feel...
up like stockings and stuff?
No, what are you, crazy?
I'm just asking. I don't know.
See, it's funny. The way we decipher is that my wife is okay with the tree. She liked it when it was her parents' farm trees. That was, but she's okay with the tree still. We decorate it. And all that, but what she doesn't like is a lot of families put like little candles in every window.
Oh,
and she sees that as being more religious, and so she doesn't. She has like kind of asked us to not do that.
Interesting.
But it's okay to put the tree up because as much as I know it's a Christian holiday, but let's face it, Christmas is...
It's a pagan tradition, too.
It's just a tradition.
Oh,
it's an American tradition. The Christian aspect of it is kind of, faded out a lot.
I purposely say happy holidays just to tilt all the evangelicals. Just point that out. I know.
That's so un-Luke Thomas.
I know. It's like really out of character to intentionally troll people based on religious grounds. I would say I have two traditions.
Okay.
We always get the tree. When I say all, I mean also I wish Danny Segura was here because I guarantee you, now that I have married into a family from the same place he's from, I bet I have very similar ones. But as a consequence of that, we get the tree the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So that's pretty early. And the other one is on Christmas Eve. We make a giant meal. It's probably better than one we make at Thanksgiving. And then I drink an absolutely obscene amount of alcohol. Christmas drink is what I like to call it.
Sounds so different
Christmas,
from a normal
yeah, no, it's like, how is that different from Wednesday? But the trick is, we always open all the gifts at the stroke of midnight.
Okay, so you have to stay up.
Yeah, you have to stay up. Stroke of midnight, we open everything.
God, you guys are so lucky.
I don't let my kids stay up till midnight. They open their gifts.
What a nice time of the year. Okay, no more. That's it, last one. Okay, last one, yes, that's right. Hey, speaking of drinks.
This is my wheelhouse.
At the bar, your drink of choice. And are hot wings a must?
Okay, now here's the question.
I like how Luke just jumps right into this one.
Now here's the question.
Yes.
If we go into a legitimate place that serves excellent cocktails and high-end spirits,
the best of the best,
then I would probably have some Yamazaki Japanese whiskey.
Wow.
But here's my normal go-to. My normal go-to is remember Sean Shirk on that UFC like unfiltered program or whatever it's called. Yeah. You looked at his meatloaf he was eating, and it looked like, I mean, absolute basura garbage, okay? And they were like, how can you eat this? And he goes, I don't eat for taste, I eat for performance. That's how I drink alcohol. Okay. I don't drink alcohol typically for taste. I drink for an effect. My normal go-to is a double Jim Beam and diet. That's the way I do it.
But the creme de la creme is that...
I would have a Japanese whiskey. Actually, our cameraman over here is the one who recommended it to me, and he was completely correct.
Interesting.
I think there's like a 10-step program for...
for quitters.
Well, if it's a high-end place, I'd go for some Pappy Van Winkle.
Pappy Van Winkle. What is that?
It's just a hard to get bourbon, but it's very good bourbon.
It is good
whiskey. It's a whiskey, and it's I'd probably get the 23-year-old because why not go top shelf?
Wow.
And I have actually I have enjoyed a glass.
I'd get a craft IPA. Something really good like that.
Get offset.
I have actually enjoyed a Pappy with Mr. Mendenhall.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was like drinking. Like I've drunk whiskey before in my life, and this was like drinking whiskey with all of that that pain that you experience in your throat just not happening. It was like as smooth as silk.
Ooh.
So I love that. But I'm not normally a drinker of whiskey or anything like that. I'm a beer
Jeff
drinker.
has other vices.
Yeah, I'm a beer drinker, and so I will go for a good microbrew, but not an IPA. I don't like IPAs.
Good,
I mean, it's nothing to do with I had nothing to do with Luke. I'm not trying to be like
I'm
Luke,
right about IPAs. I don't care what anybody else says.
I don't like it just doesn't work for me. But a nice lager is fine, or a stout or something like that. But it's a nicely locally brewed beer will be very happy.
The IPA arms race that took place in this country about 4 to 5 years ago, where they overhopped everything, ruined IPAs. There are some pale ales and some India pale ales that have since had more. They've reduced the overall hop count and made it a more balanced beer. But I stand by everything I say about IPAs. It's a trash beer. It's completely overrated. There are way better ones. If you're gonna drink a beer, hold on a second. If you're gonna drink a beer, drink local. I always drink local beers. And the last thing I want to say about this is just a shout out to my favorite rum. I also have one of those.
Okay.
Shocker. Have you ever drank?
It's been a while.
A long time, right?
It's been a couple of years.
I mean, it's been like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Dictador. It's a
what?
Dictador, which means dictator in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
It's a Colombian rum, and you can only get it in New York City and L.A.
Wow.
And it is absolutely out of this world, tremendous.
It's amazing.
Yep.
I haven't seen
local New England IPAs. They're the best.
Yeah, and you know the other thing you talked about
if you're out of battery acid.
You talked about you drink for the effect. I kind of drink to transport me to somewhere, and if I can't find a good local
me too,
brew,
buddy.
I'm gonna
projection to the floor. That's where I'm getting blind drunk in the corner.
If I can't find a good local beer that I love, I'm very happy if I can find a Red Stripe because even though it's not the greatest beer in the world, it makes me think of being in Jamaica, which is one of the places in the world I love to be. So.
Who asked this question? What's the name of the gentleman?
Yeah, who was this? Can you put the graphic
back
up?
Who they're talking to, apparently.
Who's this, Mr. Martinez?
Mr. Martinez. Kudos to you, Mr. Martinez. I haven't seen this kind of passion on this.
Last thing.
Oh yeah, what about the hot wings?
Hot wings are a must, and if you eat ranch instead of blue cheese with your wings, there's a extreme probability that you have committed sex crimes in your life. I'm just saying that's probably true. I don't know that to be true. It's probably true.
I haven't had a drink in a while, but I will say to bring this all the way back to MMA. I don't really enjoy drinking, but I remember having a Guinness in Dublin, and I remember saying to myself as I'm tearing here, that is very smooth and tasty, and I enjoyed it immensely.
Do it different, right?
By the way the guy did it, which I'm no expert.
Right? You have to get certified. You have to get certified to
do it. It was amazing
anybody,
to watch.
Anybody can teach anybody else, but if you go to the Guinness Brewery, you can get certified as an official Guinness pourer.
It was like a 3-step process. Like you wait and stuff.
The Guinness store.
Although don't tell the Irish that Guinness is slightly overrated as a.
But have you had it in Ireland?
I have had it. Yes. Well, I've had. Yeah. Yes.
It's a pretty simple question.
Well, it's fresher. It's more local.
Yeah,
I've had Guinness in a while. Last time I had a Guinness, my son who's now as tall as I am, was a little baby, and I was meeting my wife at a bar, and I had my son in my one hand, and I got a Guinness in the other hand, and just as she walked in the bar, he like reached over and stuck his hand in like up to his wrist and came out with all that Guinness like all over his hand, and like my wife was, and like he was
mortified.
I had Guinness in London and I had it in Ireland. What I had in Ireland, I was hammered, and I don't really remember it, so it doesn't really count.
Who of us hasn't been in that situation before?
Right, I mean,
three of us.
He who was without sin cast the first stone.
All right. By the way, a lot of holiday-themed questions here. We're not done for the year. Just I don't know why people were asking those questions in early December. Yeah. But hey, always happy to talk about the holidays. In fact, I'm going to go home and listen to some of the best Christmas carols that I got on my phone right over here. All right, great stuff. Really enjoyed the questions this week and enjoyed the conversation as well. We are done. Back next week, same time and place, so stay tuned for that. And of course, enjoy all the great fights this weekend. The plethora of MMA, boxing, and kickboxing fights. Should be fun. We'll talk about it next week. For now, we shall say goodbye. For the crew, for Luke, for Chuck, for Jeff, I am Ariel again. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy the fights.